And I want everyone to understand that I call what I'm about to tell you truth and consequences. This is the truth and the consequences for the Bitcoin Cash community of what's happening in this hash war. So the weekend went exactly as I expected. There was the fork on Thursday, on November 15th. There was a huge burst of hash that came into the network on the side of Bitcoin ABC that was rented or subsidized, probably from the BTC network, presumably, in order to artificially boost the support for Bitcoin ABC far higher than it had ever been in the days and weeks coming up to the hard fork. Then the Bitcoin ABC supporters decided to declare early victory because they seemed so far ahead in hash. Then they started going to the exchanges, if not before the hard fork, I think they did go before, to try and get them to recognize their chain as Bitcoin Cash BCHSV. They added checkpoint. Not a surprise, our developers had heard about that a week ago. So everything that happened is exactly as I predicted, and we're continuing to plug away. And people are probably wondering why we didn't bring more hash in to support the Bitcoin SV side of the coin. Let me explain why. We actually had plenty of petahash offered to us. In fact, we actually didn't have to go ask any miners or mining pools to rent us their hash. Before and after the BCH Miners Choice Summit on November 2nd that CoinGeek sponsored that I attended, we had a potential deal for thousands of petahash to be rented and subsidized by us, much like I'm sure Bitmain and Roger Ver are doing in some capacity, some variation. We, while I was at that summit, had thousands of petahash offered to us to rent by people who just did not like Bitmain or opposed the ABC vision or wanted to support us for all kinds of reasons. I could have walked away from that day with easily 10 to 15,000 petahash worth of support for Bitcoin SV. And it's not for lack of money resources that we decided not to do it, because Calvin and CoinGeek and nChain easily could have afforded to do that for as long as it took to win this battle. And we would have blown the Bitcoin ABC side of the water, at least of the hash that they have demonstrated so far in the charts you can see. But I actually had a realization at that moment in Hong Kong about whether that was the right thing to do. And I decided it was not, because of the consequences it would have in the future for the Bitcoin Cash community. And here's what they are. The whole reason that that hash was available on the BTC network to move on is because the people who should have fought Bitcoin Core did not, and splintered off to create the Bitcoin Cash network and allowed BTC to continue on. That's perfectly fine. But now they're borrowing hash, renting it, subsidizing it, from the very network they so vehemently oppose, many of them, to try and claim a victory on the BCH network. I want you to think about the hypocrisy of that, because it's staggering. I also want you to think about the game that is being played here. If you are able to just move hash for a day or two from the rival network that many of our community does not like, right, and use that to claim victory, what does it say about what you would do just to win what looks to many people right now as a sporting contest? In addition, I want people to know that I thought long and hard about what should be the governing model to decide disagreements between rule sets for Bitcoin. Because that's what this is. That's what's really at test in this moment right now. It's not just about a particular feature set here or there. It's about what should be the governing model when there are disagreements. And think about this. When the Nakamoto consensus was written into the Bitcoin white paper, there was supposed to only be one Bitcoin network. There was not supposed to be miners on a network running the same hash algorithm that you could pay to rent their hash to come in and vote in a disagreement over rule sets. Instead, the Bitcoin network, as we know, and its whole system, its magic is economic incentives. And that miners have incentives to provide the computing power and security of the network. They earn block rewards, they earn transaction fees. They have the investment and monetary interest, therefore, to make decisions on rule sets that best continue that economic incentive and the security of the network. But if you're not mining on the network and don't have your own investment in it and are not making money on this network but making it over on BTC, why is it that you should have a vote for the rule set for Bitcoin Cash, particularly when it's hash borrowed from the very network that Bitcoin Cash was designed to split off from? So the Nakamoto consensus, it's being tested for the first time right now. And I want you to really think about that. Obviously, Satoshi Nakamoto could not have envisioned at the time the white paper was written that there was going to be some splintered off network using the same hash algorithm. And when the idea of one CPU equals one vote, or miner hash power equals the vote, it was designed, and I'm sure most logical people can agree with it, to recognize that the people who have an ongoing, continuous, invested interest in the network are the ones that should vote on a rule set. But what has happened over this weekend is that the supporters of ABC have been so quick to come forward and say, after a day or two of hash burst, provided by Roger Ver and his Bitcoin.com move of hash from his customers from BTC over to BCH, and I'm sure from Bitmain and other sources. After 1 or 2 days of burst, they are so quick to declare, therefore, they must be the winner. When we took an alternate path, relying, and as you can now probably understand why Craig and Calvin Ayre have been so repeatedly vocal about the need for genuine, legitimate, sustained hash that supports the network, we fought and we made the decision to fight with genuine, honest hash. And that is why, if you notice, over the days leading up to the fork, the CoinGeek, SV pool, BMG pools started gradually increasing the hash that they were devoting to the network. That was done for a reason. It wasn't just an all-in burst to vote on the day of the hard fork. It was designed to demonstrate continued commitment to sustain this network and a desire to show the world we're moving it there, we're lighting it up, and we are going to continue using that hash on this network. It wasn't a flash in the pan. And so the situation that has unfolded this weekend is basically akin to saying, I want to have an election in the United States, and I don't think I have enough votes. So I'm going to go pay people from Canada to come to the US for a day, vote, and leave. Even those people have no interest in the outcome of that election. It does not affect their lives, their livelihood, what pocket of money they get to pay their bills. That is what the people on the ABC side of the fence have just created, the idea of that you could do that, and that you could do that every time there's a disagreement over the rule set. So I really want people to think about, what kind of system do you want to decide consensus rule disagreements in the future for Bitcoin? Is it who can pay the most for 1 or 2 days to rent hash from a competing rival network that you escaped from? Or is it the votes of the miners who are the ones that are ongoing, provide their sustained power because they have an ongoing economic interest in the network? And if you saw the numbers in the days before the fork, it was clear the SV side of the fence was demonstrating on a daily basis for multiple days far more than majority support for the network. I believe that should be the governing model for Bitcoin consensus rule decisions. I also want you to think, for everyone out there in the community, about the consequences for the future. If you are so quick to say that ABC should be declared the victor and awarded the BCH ticker symbol, and its consensus rules should govern, you've just walked into a bigger problematic box that I knew you would, because I knew this would all happen, and it's all unfolded on Twitter and online. You've just provided the playbook for a big corporation with really big pockets, a state actor of a government, anyone who could afford to pay for 1 or 2 days of rented hash to come over to the BCH network and get its rule set implemented. Now, they may not be nefarious. It could be a Google or an IBM or a Microsoft who's very interested in blockchain technology, right? And they want to shape the Bitcoin Cash network with rules that favor their business model, which may be perfectly legitimate, and some people may support it. But I know many of you out there in the Bitcoin community would say, well, wait a minute, I don't want some big corporation just coming to pay to take over my rule set of my network, because it wouldn't cost that much. You know, $20, $30 million could have bought them a victory in a day or two, according to what all the people screaming and cheering from ABC want to see happen. A state actor could do that easily. That's a drop in the bucket. And if you continue this path where you say, aha, after a day or two, with bursts of hash that didn't exist before and were just taken from the BTC network, that is the way to determine the rule set, you have just set up the biggest vulnerability ever for the Bitcoin Cash network. A really easy way for someone with a deep pocket to come in and implement whatever rule set they want. And for those of you who aren't a big fan of big corporations and government, you know who you are out there in the Bitcoin Cash community, I think you need to sit back and think, what have I just done? Because that's what I thought. And this is exactly what I knew was going to happen as I sat there in Hong Kong and I had all these offers of hash that we could have taken and won. And I had a moment where I had to say, you know, I know a lot of people don't think Craig is, the most responsible person in the world, but I am responsible for what we do as a business here. And I had a moment to say, is this the precedent we want to set for the Bitcoin Cash community? That anyone with a deep pocket for a day or two, who doesn't have to mine the day before, a government, a big corporation who could be a zero miner the day before, could just pay enough miners, enough money on a hard fork date to have enough hash to have its rule set take over. That's exactly the situation you are creating now for all of those who are out there on social media and online cheering for a supposed ABC victory. Because that's all you think it takes, and that's not what it should be. And that's not what it was envisioned to be at a time when the white paper was introduced to the world with the idea that there was just going to be a single Bitcoin network with a single network of miners who all had an economic incentive and interest to mine that network and therefore pick the best decisions for the viability and vibrancy of that network. So I'll close by saying that that's the truth I wanted the Bitcoin community to realize, and the consequences of the path you're trying to take. At nChain, and on behalf of the CoinGeek people who are off somewhere else, and Calvin and Craig, who I talk to a lot, I want to say, and if it's not clear already, we're very committed with the SV project to really advance the Satoshi vision. Obviously, some people have a different interpretation of it. That's okay. But if there's one thing we've been consistent about, time and time again, we want the original Bitcoin. We want to see it grow to what it was meant to be. You can disagree with us about what feature set it should be, what block cap size, what anything else, but as one thing we consistently work on day in and day out. You don't have to like Craig, but it's very clear that that is his mission and vision. It's ours as well, and that vision has to be enforced by a pure understanding of what Nakamoto consensus should be. Votes of miners who have an economic interest day in and day out, not people who can be mercenaries who are rented to come in and allow anyone, any corporation, state actor to take over your network. So people out there who are cheering for an ABC victory after a day or two, I want you to think long and hard about what you just did if that's the result you want. Because you're not going to like it. The hypocrisy, I think, is staggering from where we came from Bitcoin Core. So it's time for this community to make a choice about how you want disagreements to be decided and how you want to allow the rule set for your chain to be governed. I know what choice I'm going to make, and it's a choice that supports the Satoshi vision. I'm going to leave now because I got a lot of work to do to support that vision.